Luka had never seen an animal behave this way before, but there was a giant bear that just kept showing up at his house. He greeted him and then walked away as if the animal wanted to be followed. Luke had never paid this any mind, but one day he decided to indulge his curiosity, and he was shocked by what he found. Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. It was a new beginning for Luka and his family, who moved into a new house by the woods. Luka loved nature, and he wanted his children to be exposed to it as much as possible, so he was very happy about his new home. But soon after settling in, nature started to get too close to Luka and his family. Luka's wife, Andrea, wasn't as enthusiastic about the move, but after much discussion, he managed to convince her. Now, the first 2 days at the new house were great. The family went on long walks, and the children had a great time running around. Everything was going so well that Luka was convinced he had made the right decision. But one day, he was woken up by his children and dragged downstairs so he could see what they saw. It was a bear. Now, it was no secret that there were bears in that area of the forest. Luka was told that sometimes they approached houses because they smelled food or wanted to rummage through the trash. It is worth noting, by the way, that Luka's home was mostly made of glass. But the architects knew the area well, so the glass was fully reinforced. There was no chance that a bear could get in, and he explained this to his children. In fact, this was the perfect opportunity to see a bear up close and personal without any risk. When they got closer to observe the bear, the animal seemed to greet them. It was as if the bear was beckoning them to get closer, and they did. But when they took a couple of steps forward, the bear suddenly jumped up and headed for the forest. When the bear got a bit into the forest, he turned to stare at them. It was as if he wanted to be followed. Luka was surprised by the animal's strange behavior, but he brushed it off. The next time they spotted the bear was when Andrea came downstairs in the morning for a glass of warm milk. She was startled when she saw the bear. Luka and the children had told her about seeing one, but she thought they were joking. Now she knew it was true, and she was so angry at Luka. How could they stay in that house knowing that a bear was coming over? Well, after the third visit from the bear, Luka understood that there was a pattern. So he decided to wait by the glass door the next morning. The bear showed up again and did the same thing as before. It was clear that the bear wanted to be followed. But why? Something inside Luka was screaming at him to follow the animal, so he decided to listen to his gut. When Luka approached the door, the bear ran into the woods and then stopped, waiting for him to follow. As you can imagine, Luka was very nervous when he got out of the house, so he kept some distance between himself and the bear. It was easy, though, because every time Luka followed, the bear kept walking ahead. Maybe he needed help with something. But also, what if the bear was just taking him deep into the forest to attack him? 15 minutes later, he was still following the bear. And the more he did, the more he felt that the animal had no intention of harming him. If it wanted to attack him, hurt him, or eat him, it would have done it by now. The hike took Luka to parts of the forest that he had never seen before, and he was amazed by how unspoiled the environment was. But he had to remind himself not to let his guard down around the bear. An hour later, the bear finally stopped. By now, Luka's family would be waking up. He had left a note saying that he would be back later. If his wife knew what he was doing, she would never forgive him for being so stupid. The bear had stopped in a clearing in the forest and was now frantically sniffing around, looking for something. Luka was feeling a bit uneasy by the behavior and was thinking that maybe this would be the right time to get out of the situation, turn around slowly, and just get back to the house. But as Luka backed up a few steps, the bear turned to face him and bore its teeth. He stopped moving, and the bear went back to sniffing around. That's when he realized that he had gotten himself into a dangerous situation. What was he thinking by following this bear around? Before we continue, don't forget to like this video to help it reach 5K, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories. If Luka got out of the situation alive, he would never do anything remotely similar to this ever again. A moment later, the bear stood on its hind legs and was looking at something in the distance. It looked like he had caught a scent and was ready to follow it. Meanwhile, Luka was thinking about what he could do next. He waited a couple of seconds to see if the bear would leave him there, but the animal turned and looked at Luka. He could tell that he had no other choice but to continue following the bear. This time, the animal was moving much faster, and Luka was having trouble keeping up. It was obvious that the bear was now in a hurry, and Luka's curiosity was piqued once more. What was going on? He really wanted to find out. The path the bear was following seemed to cut through the forest, but they didn't need to clear a path to make their way through. It looked like someone or something had already gone through, clearing the way. To Luka's surprise, the more they went on, the more he saw signs that people had been there before. This area wasn't as unspoiled as the one they just came from. Suddenly, Luka realized where they were heading. In the distance, he could see a wooden hut behind the trees. That was technically his neighbor, but since the houses in that area were secluded, they hadn't met yet. Everyone lived pretty far from each other, so getting to know your neighbors was a bit more difficult. He knew a man lived in that hut, but not much else. What did that man have to do with this situation, though? Luka couldn't understand what was going on, but he was kind of glad that the bear had led him there. Maybe the neighbor could help him get away from the bear, or scare the animal off so he could go back home. But when Luka got closer to the hut, he could hear his neighbor yelling from inside, and the bear was pounding on the garage door. Suddenly, the garage door opened, and that's when Luka could see another bear lying on the garage floor. So that's what the bear was so anxious about. The animal in the garage was breathing heavily, and it was obviously in bad shape. It was a smaller bear, which led Luka to believe that the bear that led him there was the mother. While the animal reunited with the other bear, Luka rushed to his neighbor to learn what happened. The man had found the sick cub in the woods about an hour earlier. He assumed that his mother had abandoned him, so he took the cub home. He planned to take the cub to the vet because it didn't look like the cub could survive alone in the wild. Then Luka realized that's what the bear was sniffing for earlier. She had left her cub there while she looked for Luka. That's why she was so desperate for him to follow her, and why she wouldn't let him go back. Eventually, Luka and the neighbor managed to get a veterinarian down there so that they could help those animals in need. The mama bear was transported to a temporary holding facility while the cub was treated. Once the cub returned to good health, they were both released. Luka and his family still see the two bears from time to time. The last time they saw them, the bears looked healthy and well. Mama bear no longer comes to Luka's home to greet him, which is great for everyone. He was glad he could help her out, but he was also glad it was over. What do you think of today's story? It's always amazing when animals, especially wild animals, seek humans for help. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. See you next time.